In our biggest time skip yet, this episode takes place roughly 10 years after the last. Whether such a massive time jump was the best idea for this point in the narrative, I'm not so sure I agree. There were some key events that happened in this gap that I would have liked to see on screen. For example, Daemon's courting of and marriage to Laena Velaryon, as well as Laena claiming a dragon. However, I would still say this was an incredibly strong episode, that strength mainly being carried by the new actors. Not only have secondary characters such as Laena, Laenor, and Aegon been recasted to reflect the 10-year time difference, but our two lead characters, Rhaenyra and Alicent, have been recasted for the first time, now being portrayed by Emma Darcy and Olivia Cooke respectively. It was incredible to see how perfectly Emma Darcy and Olivia Cooke did at portraying Rhaenyra and Alicent. Their performances almost exactly reflected how I envisioned these two characters would read in the book. I also really appreciate the casting of Emma Darcy, a non-binary performer, as Rhaenyra, as it's sadly incredibly rare to see non-binary performers occupy leading roles in mainstream TV and film. In the last 10 years, almost all of our core characters have had quite a number of children. Daemon, who has since married Laena Velaryon, has had two daughters with her, Baela and Rhaena. In addition to the now 13-year-old Aegon, Alicent has had two other kids with King Viserys, another son Aemond, and a daughter Helaena. Rhaenyra has had two sons, Jacaerys and Lucerys, and the episode begins with her giving birth to a third. Given that all three have very little resemblance to her and her husband Laenor, rumors have been bubbling throughout the Red Keep that her children are products of an affair with Harwin Strong, commander of the City Watch and son of the current hand of the King Lionel Strong. If you recall, in the last episode, we saw Harwin dancing with Rhaenyra and then saving her from the violent mob at her wedding. While the validity of this rumored affair is left somewhat up to interpretation in the book, the show seems to confirm it to be the case. In what seems to be a simultaneous power play and desire to visually confirm the father of Rhaenyra's new baby, Alicent sends a messenger to relay her command to see the infant mere seconds after its delivery. Rhaenyra, being as tough as she is and wanting to send the message of Alicent's ridiculousness to the occupants of the Red Keep, decides to take the baby to Alicent herself, mere minutes after delivering. Her husband Laenor swoops in to help, seemingly out of both genuine concern for his wife and to help dissuade the rumors that he is not the father. Upon arrival to Alicent and King Viserys' chambers, without consulting Rhaenyra, Laenor declares the baby's name to be Joffrey, after his deceased boyfriend who was brutally murdered by Criston Cole at the end of the last episode. Speaking of Criston, it seems that Alicent ensured he was not fired from the Kingsguard for his killing of Joffrey Longmouth, and in the past 10 years, he has seemingly transitioned his personal guardship from Rhaenyra to Alicent. He now clearly bears an immense amount of hatred toward Rhaenyra, unfairly seeing her as the sole reason for his departure from his vows. He's become a true meninist, if you ask me. Criston later gets into a physical fight with Harwin Strong after clearly favoring Alicent's kids over Rhaenyra's while teaching their sword fighting class, and then goading Harwin about his affair with Rhaenyra. Since Harwin technically started the altercation, this leads to his firing from the City Watch. With the rumors of Harwin's affair with Rhaenyra bubbling and his firing from the City Watch being a fresh incident, his father Lionel Strong attempts to quit his position as Hand of the King. However, when too afraid to spell out the reasoning for his resignation, Viserys forbids Lionel from quitting. He does, however, allow him to accompany his son to Harrenhal. If you recall, this is the castle where the Great Council of 101 AC took place, and is now the seat of House Strong. This trip to Harrenhal, however, ends in absolute disaster. You see, the other Strong brother, Larys, has become an unofficial master of whispers of sorts to Alicent. In an attempt to please Alicent, who is enraged by the failure of King Viserys to acknowledge Rhaenyra's affair with Harwin, Larys hatches a plan. He cuts the tongues out of death row prisoners so they can't tell on him. He then sends them to Harrenhal in order to set fire to the castle, killing his father Lionel and brother Harwin. When told about this deed, Alicent is visibly distraught. This is not what she intended at all. However, it seems that she wasn't careful what she wished for, and Larys is much more dangerous than she thought. This does, however, leave the Hand of the King position open, and the possibility for her father Otto to return to fill that role emerges. In the past 10 years, Alicent has fallen so deep into her pool of hatred for her former best friend Rhaenyra that she is no longer acting rationally. In perhaps no scene is this more evident than the meeting of the Small Council. The meeting begins with the mention of escalating conflict between House Bracken and House Blackwood. If you remember, these were two of the houses that were vying for Rhaenyra's hand in marriage at the outset of episode 4. The Blackwood child killed the Bracken during that courting event, and it seems that the animosity between the two houses is only growing with time. The topic of conversation then transitions to the Stepstones. It seems that, due to the throne's failure to fortify their hold over the territory, the Triarchy has slowly weaseled their way back into control. They have now formed an alliance with Dorne, led by House Martell. If you recall, that was the house that Oberyn and Doran belonged to in Game of Thrones. At this point in history, Dorne has not yet been annexed into the Seven Kingdoms and remains a separate country. In turn, this means that they can pursue any political ambitions they would like. Rhaenyra blames the Triarchy's return on the failure of the throne to fortify their hold over the territory, but Alicent viciously cautiously decrees that the throne can't financially afford such measures. Seeing the animosity in the conversation, Rhaenyra sees this as the perfect opportunity to make her last-ditch effort at healing her relationship with Alicent. She proposes that her son Jacaerys be married to Alicent's daughter Helaena, and that the next egg hatched by Rhaenyra's dragon be given to Alicent's dragonless son Aemond. As King Viserys seems to comment, this would be the absolute best path forward for all parties involved. It would heal the rift blatantly forming in the Targaryen family, and would ensure the birth of more dragon riders. However, as I said earlier, Alicent is no longer thinking rationally. Her hatred for Rhaenyra is unfortunately just too strong for her to accept this proposal. The rejection of her proposal, coupled with the banishment of her lover Harwin, serves as the final straw for Rhaenyra. She informs Laenor that they will be leaving King's Landing and relocating themselves, their children, and their servants to Dragonstone. If you recall, Dragonstone is the ancestral seat of House Targaryen and actively belongs to the next in line for the throne, in this case being Rhaenyra. She encourages Laenor to bring along his new boyfriend, ominously warning that they will need all the swords they can get. Meanwhile, the former occupant of Dragonstone, Daemon, is currently living in Pentos, a free city in the eastern continent of Essos, with his wife Laena and their 2 daughters. In the 10 years since the last episode, Laena has claimed a dragon, the very dragon that she was asking King Viserys about as a child in episode 2. The Pentoshi Magister that is currently hosting Daemon and Laena offers them immense wealth and political power in Pentos if they were to aid them against the Triarchy in the newly brewing war in the Stepstones. Daemon, refusing to admit he still harbors longing for his homeland of Westeros, is interested in the proposal. Laena, however, is starkly against it, longing to return home and raise their children there. Tragically, Daemon does not entertain Laena's wishes fast enough. He finds himself in a parallel predicament to his brother Viserys, as his wife is on the verge of dying in childbirth. The attending Maester poses him the same options his brother received: cut Laena open, killing her in a 50-50 attempt to save the life of the child, or both will die. However, unlike Aemma Arryn, Laena overhears the Maester's question and decides to take matters into her own hands. In order to end her suffering, she flees the birthing room and makes her way to her dragon, ordering it to burn her to death. The dragon, clearly caring for its rider, initially is hesitant but eventually obliges, sending Laena to a fiery suicide. This scene also adds fuel to the popular theory that dragons and riders have some sort of mental link, clearly relaying the intentioned target for each command. The episode ends with Daemon now a single father to 2 daughters, Rhaenyra and Laenor arriving at Dragonstone with their children, and Alicent having unleashed a monster in Lionel Strong. Factions are now splintering further, and old enemies are rearing their heads once again. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content of this nature, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can also ring that notification bell to be updated whenever I upload a new video. If you'd like to check out my fiction writing as well as my vlog channel, visit my website withkoji.com/@GurrenHime. All links to my creative projects as well as my social media profiles can be found there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next week for episode 7.